Good to see all of you that are watching us live within the NFT.NYC community. We're looking forward to bringing our event back. I think this is our 8th event, and we're doing this in Times Square, June 24th through 26th. My name is Ian Utile. I've been a partner to the NFT.NYC team in helping them co-produce this event over the course of, almost 8 years. I remember us having the conversation in 2018. The founders, Jody and Cameron, and myself, and the founders of OpenSea, Alex and Devin, and what would it be like to have a NFT event? Nobody even knew what a non-fungible token or digital assets or crypto collectibles were at that time. It was a totally new concept. I didn't have any idea what anybody was talking about, but I love the idea of crypto keys. I thought that was the coolest thing. You have this digital asset and you have another one, you can make babies. I thought there's something to this. And in the midst of it all, because I didn't really understand what anybody was talking about, I said, well, I'll interview people. I figured if I interviewed the leaders of the industry, I'd be able to figure out what's going on. And now 500 interviews later, and I'm about to bring up one of my friends, Dirk, the co-founder and co-CEO of Upland. And before I do, there's something very special about the way that I have been invited to continue to cultivate these conversations. We used to call them fireside chats to try to create an intimacy, right? It's me and a friend just having a conversation. Now, my new term is it's a beachside chat. This is real behind me. I live on the sand with the Pacific Ocean as my real true background. And so this is my way of saying to my friends, come on in, come join me at the beach. Let's talk for a few minutes and catch up on the great things that are happening and the great things that are being done. Before I bring Dirk up, let me do a proper introduction. Dirk is built one of the most important and largest blockchain-based metaverses. A lot of people talk big. Dirk and his team have built big. Dirk is also leading the charge of the a German, project, helping all the German startup accelerator in San Francisco. It seems as though he never runs out of energy or optimism. And it'll be great to hear his thoughts on what's happening around digital property and what's happening specifically for digital property being tangible, significant, practical uses of NFT technology. So without any more waiting, Dirk, I'd love for you to jump on stage and say hello to all our friends.
Hello, good morning. At least for me, it's the morning here. So I don't know. It looks like also it's daytime in your place, Ian.
So, yes, I'm probably an hour or so away from you. I'm still in Santa Cruz County, over in the Capitola Village. So behind me, that's the Venetian, the oldest resort in California. Pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. It's a beautiful place there, right? That's very nice. So actually, I have a virtual background, but it's actually same location, right? Almost.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So Dirk, you and I have a lot of fun stories to share. Thank you for jumping on today. You have a very nice voice today. It's full of power and authority. But for those that don't know you, can you give a little background on what you were doing that kind of led you to launching Upland 6 years ago?
Yeah, so I mean, you and I, we've going back way back, right? So in terms of time, right? I think we met the first time in 2019 in Las Vegas. We can talk about that. So I got basically into blockchain, into let's say first in Bitcoin back in 2011 already. Had the background that I actually did once academic research in about private and state-controlled currencies. And when then Bitcoin came around, so I stumbled over the Bitcoin white paper in I think it was late 2010 or so. I said, "Oh wow, this is really interesting," because I was actually interested in all the game currencies, but they were all somehow artificial, right? You can create them and you can inflate them and whatever you can do, right? But there were never real economies behind it. And when I saw Bitcoin, I said, that's really different. I want to get more involved in that, right? So since then, I never let go of the whole space. I tried out a few things, and then that led me actually then in 2018 to get together with my two co-founders, Mani Honigstein and Idan Zuckerman, to actually come up with a concept where we say, okay, we have to build something everyone understands very quickly, because what the problem was in the past with blockchain was very cumbersome, right? Was much for nerds, right, to get into it. And I remember when I mined my first Bitcoin on my laptop, that was actually, I needed 3 days to get that going, right? And then my laptop was constantly running, the fan was bothering me, and I turned it off. I should never turn it off looking back, but anyways, it's a side story. So we said in 2018, okay, let's build something which is easy to understand for people. So first of all, we said, okay, what does everyone know? A game. We say, okay, game is great when you take Monopoly. I've never met a person in the world who does not know Monopoly. I say, let's take the idea or the inspiration of Monopoly, take blockchain, and what else is interesting, take the real world. So that's actually how the concept of Upland was born, and that's how we started out. And we added other things into it, which makes it much easier for users to onboard. So I'll give you 2 more examples. One was that we went mobile first, which made us very unique in the blockchain space. So we launched already in 2020 iOS and Android apps. And I think for a very long time, we were the only apps who were actually in the app stores, allowing users to buy and sell, digital goods there, also which were based on blockchain, and which made it very unique. Going forward, then the other thing is what we also said is, okay, you can sign up also with email and password. That was also very unique. Today, you have lots of solutions in that direction, right? You can sign up with socials, but back in 2020, we were also the only ones who are providing that to our users. Consequence was that we actually attracted not only, let's say, the Web3 or crypto, fanboys and girls, right? We also were able to attract, just normal people who wanted to play, right? And we did, it's now a little bit older, but like in, I think 23, the last survey, we found out that 65% of our users, they didn't know that they own NFTs, right? They just knew that they were playing, that we were able to sell it, right? And that was always our objective.
Yes. I have 3 distinct memories when you and I met that happened in, like, let's say a 5-month period. So October 2019, we're both at the World Crypto Conference. That might have been the first time that you ever printed out the llama and had Upland branding done, and like, or at an event. The guy that ran that event, he asked me to come and do a bunch of things with him. And so I was out there, and I run into you, and I thought, wow, like, this guy's super friendly. You're the very welcoming and articulate and kind of sharing, and you seem to have a vision to make money. And a lot of people that had no vision of how they were going to ever make any money. It was just like big talking and nothing's ever going to come of it. Or they just want to sell a token, or it was always like this kind of, but when I talked to you, I thought, he seems to like have a plan. I think this guy has a plan. He has an app, and he has a plan to make money, and he has a plan for his users to make money. Like, this is different. And then I remember the llama and thinking, oh, this is so cool. So then we're there for 3 days. You're packing up, and I say to you, where do you live? And you go, oh, I'm in San Francisco. I'm in San Francisco. And I go, I work out of San Francisco at the Runway, the incubator hub inside Twitter. You're like, well, I work out of that. I'm at the German Accelerator. I'm like, oh man, we got things in common. And I go, what are you doing with your llama? And you're like, I guess I have to throw it away. I got to jump on a plane. It's too big. You have this big, huge poster board. I'm like, I'll put it in my car, bro. We're friends. We're neighbors. I'll bring it there for you. And I remember you came to my treehouse when I was living in the treehouse at the time in Aptos, in Santa Cruz County, pretty close to here. And we had a much longer conversation. And that's when you explained to me, some of the pitfalls you saw in people not treating this industry as a business, but as a joke. And you're like, we are treating this as a business. Like, we're doing real volume. And at that time, it was nothing compared to today. But you had traction. Like, people were actually buying digital property. People were like engaging in it. And then finally, in February 2020, you were together with us for our second NFT.NYC event. And the distinct thing about you, I remember, is that you were the most optimistic person there. Some of the leaders of the industry that built $10 billion valued market cap companies in 21 and 22, they were ready to quit in 2020. I would have private conversations. I'm like, how you doing, bro? Now remember, in just 18 months, they got a $10 billion valued company, A16Z's investing $1 billion into them. And, they're like, I'm terrible. And if you know of any job, that I can take a soft landing on? Or do you have a consulting project, bro? Things are not, we're going to fail, but not Dirk. No, Dirk's like, I am great. We built the monopoly of the internet. This is the future. And I remember thinking, like, this guy is convinced that he is building something important. And so for me, Dirk, those were a few of the important things that kind of came early on. And so I think one of the questions I want to ask you is, how do you maintain optimism through the valley of 2020, the peak of 2022, the valley of 2024? How do you maintain your vision? How do you maintain your team? How do you keep them engaged and keep them not just employed, but keep them working hard? How do you maintain, like, what are you doing to not be shaken by the news of the day?
Yeah, I think that's probably the destiny of an entrepreneur, right? So this is not my first rodeo. So Upland in total is my fifth rodeo, actually. And meantime, as you said before, I also co-founded the Open Metaverse Alliance. And I had a lot of near-death experiences everywhere, right? So you go through that, and and as you said, I've mentored over 30 startups here in Silicon Valley, from all around the world, and I've seen so many different ways of going about it. But I said, look, it's just business at the end of the day, right? But when you're an optimist, I think then one things come to the other, right? And of course, you get a lot of, you know headwinds all the time. There's always something new coming up, and I have to also be maybe sometimes want to be also quite open that maybe I was too optimistic back in 2022, because when things were going really rocket, it was just amazing. We were doing lots of marketing, but each time I would do more marketing, even more would come out. It just didn't stop. And as I said, I have seen lots of startups myself, and ran a lot of startups myself. I've never seen that before. That was really incredible, right? And
Incredible.
then, of course, you get a little bit blinded for a few months. Also, us, right? We said, "Oh, wow, this is something," But then, of course, unfortunately, the war broke out, and then crypto winter
Right.
came, and all that stuff, and then things have changed, right? But I think the secret of success is actually that you are able then to also be adaptable, right? That you can do things differently, right? And we had one of our big advantages was always that we didn't go after the hardcore crypto people who were just there for speculation, right? And because these people, they come in, of course, you need speculators in a certain sense, right, to drive excitement and so on. But you need, I tend to say, 10-15% of these kind of demographics. But if you have them, people who really believe in the product, who enjoy your product, who are with you, right, that creates a totally different foundation. And that was what we were able to achieve with Upland. Even when we stopped, doing, because we did a lot of marketing back in 21 and 22, right? When we stopped doing that much of marketing, because it would just not return as good as before, right? We kept the core of our audience, right? The core of our community. And as of today, you can go into our Discord, right? People are so active, and each time when we run, some special live operations and so on, they come back. Sometimes people are coming back. Sometimes they haven't been there for 2 years, then they coming back and say, "Oh, Upland has developed so many new things. It's so cool now," right? And that was always, we never came and said, we want to develop something, and after 2 years we're going to sell and then I'm off, right? We want to build something really for the long term. And I think our users just feeling that, and that is what is so important. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. You've been consistent in looking beyond just your own company. You mentioned the Open Metaverse Alliance. When we met, you were at the German accelerator inside of the incubator at Twitter. One of the things that I invited you to participate in, that you've done a couple of times, is to participate with the Center for Entrepreneurship. And that's in San Francisco at the largest city college. There's like 85,000 students when you and I first started doing things with them before the pandemic. Um, and so my question to you is, how do you manage having this rocket ship business, but still participating in an alliance, in the accelerator, and being available to other opportunities to go speak and try to inspire students? How do you manage, what you say yes and no to? Because there's a black hole of needs. Everybody wants your time. All your employees, everybody, all your partners, everybody wants you to help them with whatever's important to them at the moment. So how do you manage what you say yes and no to in the midst of your responsibilities?
Yeah, well, the basic assumption is that it's always upland first, right? I want to clearly say that, right? And when I said, I also wrote the book or Navigating the Metaverse, which was a bestseller on Amazon for a few weeks, right? So it's all about, I say, okay, my mission is really to bring upland forward, right? But what I always thought is I cannot just do it by one company. I have to do it by multiple channels, right? So either channels like writing a book, going on conferences to speak, but also creating the Open Metaverse Alliance. The intention was, of course, to bring upland forward, but I thought we cannot just create something which is acting in a silo. I really want to do something which is, what blockchain is about, cooperation, partnering, bringing things together. And that's why I started the Open Metaverse Alliance. And now, we have partnerships with Sandbox and others. And people might say, the old world might say, hey, aren't you competitors or something? They say, no. I mean, we're not really competitors, right? We're actually helping each other to cross-pollinate our users and things, right? So that's something we have a lot of, overlap there. And that was always the assumption. But coming to your point of the center of entrepreneurship, as you know, when I said I did five startups myself, entrepreneurship is also a big part of Upland. So what we actually created, we always said we want to have digital entrepreneurs, and what we've created is so-called meta ventures. So our users, they can create their own digital assets or resell other assets, like with partnerships with FIFA or the NFL Play Association and others. They can sell them, and they can, and make money out of that. And what is really interesting, and that was the beauty of blockchain and the Web3 space, our users sold between each other for $16 million, $16 million digital items already, right? So in the old world, I would have said as a company, oh, this is my thing, I want to own all that, right? And there's no, I think, no, when you have your community, your users participate in the value creation, then the cake at the end is going to be larger, right? And that keeps also people in our app. And that's why we created, I think we have now almost 4,000 meta ventures. So we created almost 4,000 digital entrepreneurs. And, we have people, who stated publicly on Twitter or so when they said, oh, I just paid the down payment of my house because I made so much money in Upland, not by speculating, but by creating value.
Yeah.
And that also led to the fact that, when we initially said, oh, we were inspired by Monopoly, today I rather say we are much more like a Roblox for grown-ups, right? Where, Roblox, everyone who listens here and has kids in between 7 and 15 knows that kids spending a lot of time and money in those. But Roblox ages out at, I don't know, 19, 20 years or so, right? Where do people go then, right? And because you have to have different types of gameplay, you have to have a real economy. And that's how we position Upland also. We want to have this entrepreneurial, gamified type of a virtual world, I said Roblox for grown-ups.
Well, one thing we haven't mentioned is that you have your PhD in economics. That has a lot to do with your ability to co-found 5 companies. It also has a lot to do with your ability to ensure that Upland is a profitable, exciting company with a great runway and long trajectory of where you're going and how you're getting there, and still make room for the people that engage with Upland. By the way, everybody go to upland.me, upland.me. And as you can see, some of the things that you'll see on that site: $16 million earned by players, over 8 million digital assets, digital property minted since 2019. There's almost 3 billion UPX monthly trading volume. So this is a constantly, active community. There's been 110 million Sparklet earned by players, your utility token. And it goes on and on and on. And it certainly does have that sense of Roblox for adults. As we come up to the end of our time together, Dirk, I want to encourage everyone to engage with Upland directly. But is there any last thing that you'd like to encourage the NFT.NYC audience to do, right? If they're not familiar, check it out. But there's a lot of people that'll be at NFT.NYC with us next month. And a lot of people that may be listening to this live or watch this in an hour or in a day that used to have an Upland account. They used to have the app on their phone. They were engaged when things were exciting, and then one thing leads to another, and they haven't logged in a while. What's your message to those that used to be really engaged? It's not just, hey, people are making money. There's probably more to it. So maybe you could give one last kind of call to action before we wrap up our time together.
Yeah, so I maybe divide this up. First of all, when you're coming back to Upland, because obviously we have around 4 million accounts in total, and some people were there in 21, 22. As I said, people are coming back. So if you're coming back now, go and check it out. Go to Virtual Paris, go to Virtual Chicago, see what people have been building, and join some of those sub communities. Because what's so much fun is that people are coming together, let's say in a virtual location, right? Even though they are, they live in Paris, Tokyo, or South America, but somehow they get together in this virtual location and create this sub-community. It's very interesting to see. And then you can start, building out that neighborhood, and you can become really creative. So I assume lots of people who are coming to NFT.NYC, those are creative people. And we give lots of room for those, and to create, like the virtual map assets. You can create a virtual statue for your property. You can have an ornament on your house or whatever, right? These kind of things and you can really live your creativity, and you can expand your own brand into it. So let's say you're an artist, maybe you're not super famous, you met or so, right? Why don't you start creating art in Upland, right? Because like this, more people will be seeing your art, and then you have the opportunity. And this comes back now to the broader view. I'm a big believer in this whole let's do it together approach, right? So because when they see it in Upland, maybe they say, oh, I want to buy maybe some other art from this artist, NFT artist, right? And I can do that, right? Because they found you in Upland, right? So, and that could be something you probably where there's a big opportunity. And that's the last thing I'd say. We all have to continue to work together. The industry has a hard time in the past, right? But it's here to stay, and with all these new technologies, I don't want to mention too much of AI, but everything which is coming up these days, right? There's even more opportunities. But I think what is important, let's do it together. That's what blockchain, that is what it is about.
Yes. Dirk, thank you for joining me. We don't need to wait a month to see each other in New York. We're both here in the San Francisco Bay. It'd be great to get together with you when it's convenient. We have each other's cell phone numbers. We can text one another. I know you travel a lot. You're all over the world at conferences, providing support and the confidence of your community, but also for the entire industry. And on behalf of the industry, I want to say thank you for all that you do outside of Upland. Even though Upland's number one, you do a lot to support everyone that's involved in the metaverse and beyond. Thank you for that. And if we don't see each other locally, I'll see you in Times Square very, very soon.
Okay. See you all in New York. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Hello, NFT.NYC community. If you don't know me, my name is Ian Utile. I've been a part of the team and a partner to the community event since it was an idea back in 2018. And I've been able to do, over 500 of these conversations. Used to call them fireside chats because that was the thing to call them, but I'm here at the beach. That is really the Pacific Ocean behind me. I live on the sand, so very grateful for that. And so this is a beachside chat. That's what we're calling these things now. And next up is Marco and Ben, two of the co-founders of Transient Labs. They've redefined how artists engage with NFTs, from smart contract innovation to tools that enhance interactivity. They're making blockchain an artist's playground. So for all the artists out there, that hopefully is music to your ears. I'd love to decode how they see NFTs, digital assets, crypto collectibles, whatever you want to call them. How are they transforming art itself? So without any waiting, let's bring my guests up right now so we can enjoy a conversation together. Marco, welcome to the stage. I think we have Ben with us as well. Ben, welcome. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Yes. So why don't the two of you give a little background on how you came together to launch Transient Labs? And then, I'll ask you guys some questions. I'm a curious dude, so I have all kinds of questions I might ask you. We'll see what I come up with.
Yeah, Ben, did you want to start off with the background?
Yeah, I'll try not to get too into the weeds. So, Marco and I we've been best friends since college. We went to school for engineering together in Colorado. And not long after graduation, we both ended up working at the same aerospace company. So I think Marco was there for about a year, maybe.
I was there for exactly a year. Yeah. I quit the year anniversary.
And prior to really jumping into NFTs, I've always been a photographer. Been doing landscape photography for a long time. And when NFTs started kind of really picking back up in early 2021, late 2020, I started exploring just minting, like what does it mean to sell digital assets in the world of NFTs? Really pushing for photography as a valid art form amongst other photographers. And then slowly dragging Marco in because he's, was much more knowledgeable in programming and stuff at that point in time. Still is more knowledgeable than me in that side of things. And he really started diving into smart contracts, and we quickly noticed there's a lot more you can do than just using smart contracts just as like a vehicle for passive metadata like JPEGs or MP4s. And that's when we started exploring dynamic art and really interesting custom smart contract mechanics. All right, Marco, you want to?
Yeah, there was something just like super, like it was a light bulb going off moment when I started looking at smart contracts, specifically around NFTs. These ownable digital objects are like, you can do just so much with them. Like Instagram is limiting. You get videos and pictures. With NFTs as like a fundamental technology, you can still do that stuff. It's amazing as just like first principles. Being able to own digital assets is fantastic. But then on top of that, you start looking at smart contracts with like, what can you do with ownership on chain? Like that's a really interesting aspect of blockchain as a medium. So we've done projects in the past with like Thank You X, where we took 4 of his giant 20-foot canvases that we digitally cut them up, and it was a giant mint. But then after the fact, people could buy basically the pieces that form an actual larger part of the canvas, and they could actually recombine them on chain. And then, so now you have these varying sizes, and he was actually able to let people claim the actual pieces of the canvas, like in real life, and cut them to like the squares that people merged together. So that was really, really fun as just like something you look at a physical medium artist, and how does the blockchain and tokenizing your art actually like turn into something more? How does blockchain enhance the experience? I think that's something that we look a lot at.
I had heard of you guys. Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, go for it.
So I had heard of you guys loosely through just friends and mutual friends, people in the industry. But the first time I had a friend like really champion you was in early 2023. It was Jeremy Coart when he was putting together Aura. Were either of you at his Aura event in Nashville?
No, someone else from our team was though. David.
I thought there was
Feinstein from our
somebody.
team.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard from them about that event, I'm not sure if you heard from them about that event, but I've been to hundreds of concerts, more plays and operas than I like to admit. I've seen thousands of movies. I've seen a lot of live art, live painting. Personally, I never saw anything as moving as Oris. And the ability for a photographer to create 10,000 one-of-one art pieces in real time, live, in front of an audience, with a live musician, with that screen where they made Mandalorian and all the, just kind of the epicness of it all. And yet, when I would talk to him about his partners, he kept coming back to Transient, not just because Transient Labs had good tech, good product, good services, but it was also your team's strategy. It was like your team coming alongside him and making him feel like you guys are coming with, great ideas and hey, can we try this? Can we try that? And he definitely expressed to me, because Jeremy and I've been friends for, quite some time. Like, dude, the guys at Transient Labs, that's the team to work with. Like, if you got a custom project, you got a cool idea, like, these are the guys that you want in your corner. And so I remember that was the first time where it kind of settled with me of, oh, there's something different about this team and what they're bringing to the market. So what I want to ask you guys on that front, would you consider yourself to be a service company, a product company, a technology-enabled services company, where it's kind of like a product that you are using on behalf of your clients? Is it an out-of-the-box thing? Is it changing over time? Like, how much hand-holding and strategy? Like, when somebody thinks of Transient, and they're maybe somebody that's has a real community, has already had many successful projects, as Jeremy had beforehand. How do you want people to think of Transient Labs if they're to contact you, through the contact form on transient.xyz? That's transient.xyz for those interested. But please give us an idea of how people should think of your company.
Yeah, we have we started much more on the services side. That's kind of the background of Transient. We were very much white glove service, custom curated projects. Because a lot of the stuff we were doing is technical. But I would say not too far into 2022, 2023, we really started exploring, like, how do we take what's inside Marco and I's brains, and Chris Ostich, who's our other co-founder and COO, and how do we productize these innovations, and how do you do innovation at scale? And so we really started we still have that custom services side that's now lives under a brand called TLX. And then we have this whole other side of Transient Labs that is product, self-service, creator suite, everything from deploying your own contracts, creating your own mint and auction pages, to a new product that we're rolling out in closed beta currently for no-code creative coding. So like living media, how can anybody create something that's dynamic, living, reactive, interactive? And so I would say you started services for sure. It shifted into a hybrid where we have two branches of Transient. But because we started over here and we're so used to being hands-on and very human with people, and we're very much collaborators, not just like a dev shop, but as you said, Jeremy Cowart would be is a huge advocate of us in the sense that he experienced that creative collaboration that we bring to the table. So we have this whole other ecosystem that is self-serviced, a whole creator suite in Web3, but we bring over and kind of bridge over that human, collaborative, supportive nature that Transient Labs has always had. And the innovations too. We have a lot of stuff in the self-service creator tool suite that's they're not going to find anywhere else, that helps creators just kind of branch out and blow the doors off of their creative experience for themselves and for the collectors in their ecosystem.
Should people think of you as like there's a set price that they would pay for the product or services? Is it a joint venture? Like they get to use your tools, and with success, you guys are able to be compensated that way? Like if there's a person or a team that's coming to you, how might they think of you? As a vendor, a partner, a hybrid, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, if you're talking about the TLX side, the white glove service kind of custom projects, we definitely approach that with, we only succeed if they succeed. So it's more of a percentage kind of split. Definitely not in our favor. We want to support other people and creators the most. And then on the product side, that whole thing in the lab, in the creative studio, is completely free to artists to use. And we take a very small percentage off of auction sales, but mints and everything else is, there's no charge to the artists to do that stuff.
When an artist, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
When an artist is creating with you, are you giving them an option of one wallet? Like, hey, we do everything with MetaMask. Is it just Ethereum? Is it just Ethereum layer 2s? Or hey, no, Base is the hot thing now. So like you can mint in your Coinbase wallet on the Base blockchain, or hey, we're using other layer 1s. Some of this is a little technical, but anybody that's listening to this conversation or going to be with us at NFT.NYC, they probably are familiar with some of these things. Sure. And these are questions that they may not want to ask or have to research, and they just may want to know. So when it comes to wallets, ETH or layer 2 blockchains, other blockchains, what is the latitude and the flexibility and the adaptability by which someone can do a project with you?
Marco, I saw you on mute, so I don't take all the talking points.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You tackle this one. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I was going to say we support the Ethereum ecosystem, primarily layer 1, Base. We have support for Arbitrum and Shape L2s. So we have layer 1 Ethereum and then 3 L2s that we really like. Base obviously is a fantastic layer 2, and we really love Shape as well, just because it's like a creator focused layer 2, fully focused on like kind of creators and NFTs really. And then we work with pretty much any wallet. So if I think most of the team now actually uses Rabby, but Coinbase's smart wallet works. Coinbase wallet mobile works just like great. MetaMask, obviously an industry standard. So we try to be as flexible as we can. And then, moving forward, we're also going to be integrating like Family Wallet. So like Family, which is under Avara, I think, or Lens, whatever that parent company is, they released their kind of like email login wallet a few weeks ago. So I'm going to be playing around with that so that we can like onboard more people easily, and you have a wallet just by logging in with an email, basically.
So maybe the last technical question I'll ask you guys, and then we'll go more to, exciting art-oriented questions and like the end result. What are you trying to help people do? But I noticed that you have 721 TL, 1155 TL, and a 7160 TL. So my assumption is you're writing your own custom smart contract. My question is, are you customizing your smart contract? So for those that don't know, a 721, think of it as an original piece of art, a one of one, and think of an 1155 as a one of many or a lithograph of art in a digital term. And that's how most people might frame it. So maybe you guys could explain what a 7160 is, why you have TL at the end. It's probably your own smart contract, your own version. And can you customize your smart contract for an artist or a brand that would justify their desire to have a smart contract customization?
Yeah, given that he's one of the co-authors on ERC 7160, so I'm going to shoot that one over to him.
Yeah.
Solidity wizard. So take it away, sir.
Go for it, Marco.
Yeah. The TL at the end is just like our version. So there's like a few custom features that is like specific to Transient Labs. One of them is called story inscriptions, which allows you to put like text-based data onto a token on chain. But yeah, so 721 and 1155 are obviously built off those standards. And then I co-authored 7160, which is an ERC for metadata. It's a metadata extension, basically, for 721 contract. So instead of just a token pointing to a single piece of metadata, now it points to basically a list or several different pieces of metadata. So we've seen this used as like a creative medium where people, like creators, will mint something and then add a creation to that token, which basically furthers the story. Or we've seen use cases where somebody's minted multiple different aspect ratios so that the single token can be shown properly on any screen, like orientation. And so Ben, you could maybe talk to some of the other ways that people have used that standard. But yeah, that's kind of the overview of 7160.
Yeah. Did you have any follow-ups before I jump in some use cases, or?
No, please share. Yeah, share the use cases, and then
Okay.
I think people are interested in this stuff, and a lot of times people shy away from these conversations because it's like, oh, too technical. But the reality is, a lot of people do want to know how you're approaching these things. So please, Ben, give us a little more insight.
Yeah, just another way to think about 7160s too is, like you said, 721s are one-of-one artworks. They're unique. They're a single file, a single digital artwork, like a print on your wall, that is unique to itself. So 7160, I like to think about it as you're minting in a single token. That token, instead of representing a file, it almost represents a folder of one-of-one assets inside of it. And so instead of having a collection where you have 10 one-of-ones, you can have a collection that has a single token that can contain 10 versions of itself, or like Marco said, different aspect ratios of itself. People often like to group a piece of artwork together with other versions or derivatives to tell a story. And instead of minting those as separate tokens, it can make a lot more sense from a collector's and a creative perspective to group those artworks into a single token. So you're almost minting like an artistic story or a narrative, which is really interesting. And so some of the use cases people have been using 7160s for, like Marco said, the aspect ratio one is pretty popular. Sometimes someone will have a dynamic art piece or a generative art piece that's an HTML file. So they'll mint that inside that token, but then they'll also provide an MP4 version of that, a JPEG version of that, just in case you have a monitor that doesn't support HTML, which a lot of art frames do not right now. So it's good to have like backup file types so that you can still display your artwork, but still have in your token the original dynamic intended piece of artwork. And then other artists like TJO, he's used 7160s to essentially mint like an artistic video book. So inside the token, he has like 13 pages, he calls them. And each one is a different interpretive dance that all kind of go together to tell an overarching story. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so many other use cases that people are starting to unlock with 7160. Including tracking an artwork progression over time. Someone's minting one that tracks tree growth, like an actual tree, and they're updating photos of that tree as it's growing in time and putting those into their 7160 token. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to use it, but you can also use it as a 721. If you just put one creation in there, it is a one-of-one, and it's kind of like a future.
That's like a folder with one file in it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that is
the metadata is flexible, by which the artists could go in and add a second or a 15th file to the original file. So someone mints one of these 7160s, and right now it's one file of a sproutling. And every quarter they take a new photograph, and 50 years later there's now 200 photographs of that sproutling that became a 50-foot tall oak tree. And that's basically the point of having a folder instead of a file, by which it's kind of a living organism on the blockchain.
Yeah, you basically nailed it right on the head. And it's a really cool way to reward your collectors too. So whenever I do one-of-ones at this point, I just default to 7160s, because if I ever want to reward a certain collector or airdrop them a new artwork, I can just add it to their existing token. And it helps creators control like their supply and not be increasing their supply too much, while also being able to reward collectors through I don't know, loyalty, holding, collecting. So it's a nice like future-proof version of 721 that gives you a little bit more flexibility.
So Can we talk about success in this industry for a second? And so let me just frame something, because I kind of want to end here. What I want to end our conversation on is this, if you guys don't mind. I want to end it on, what's the end result that your clients are going for? And how do you make realistic expectations that are based on their art, their community, their willingness to do whatever it takes to bring this thing to market it, and be able to have people desire it and want to own it and collect it and hold it. And then when people oftentimes are looking at these extraordinary things. So, for instance, we can look at Violetta Zeroni as one of the top musician NFTs. Recently, she sold a song for 1 Bitcoin. Now, I don't think she sold a song for 1 Bitcoin as much as someone bought a song for 1 Bitcoin. And when they bought the song for 1 Bitcoin, they were making a statement to the industry, to musicians, to her, and to the Bitcoin ordinals community. Right? Then you have the Rafiqs of the world, right? Maybe the top AI digital artist that's making living AI. He has a massive team of data scientists, and what he's creating is the largest scale thing. And so, like, what he just had a drop recently, sells out the drop very quickly. It's all high priced, and so people are like, well, look what Rafiq did. Why can't I do that too? It's like, well, maybe you can, but is your community as strong? Have you been as consistent? Have you served your collectors as well as he has over time? Easy for people to look at people, right? This guy sold a collection of art for $70 million. Like, well, not really. Medicoven bought it for $70 million. Very different thing. Medicoven was making a statement to the industry. He was putting Ethereum-based digital assets on the map and saying this matters. He was putting people and digital artists on the global stratosphere, and he bought all of Beeple's art for a 15-year period of time in that collection. We can look at Jeremy, right? One of the top photographers, and what he did with Block Queens, selling out in 3 seconds. And then what he does with Oris, which I think was the greatest display of a launch project and one of the most ambitious projects of all time. Yet that was a struggle, right? Because it was in the downturn. So what happens is people look at the Violettas and the Rafiqs and the Beeples and the Jeremys of the world. They often only look at their greatest hits, Jeremy's Block Queens. They often don't look at their most ambitious, most courageous project, Oris, because, like, well, I don't want to talk about that. That did not sell out in 3 seconds. Then they come to you and they go, okay, Transient Labs, like, I want to sell song for a Bitcoin and I want my collection to be sold for $70 million. Help me out. So how do you manage expectations when a lot of the times the greatest success has to do with the right moment, the right time, the wind is in the sail, or it has to do with a buyer trying to make a statement? So how do you manage expectations with people that are wanting to lean on your strategy and your services, use your products, but you don't want to discourage them and, tell them, oh, no, don't think so big. You still want them to be ambitious, but you also want to manage their realistic goals by which, hey, if we exceed these, then yay for everybody. But, like, let's go after this. And if you don't mind, that's where I'd like to land on with the two of you, because I feel like this is part of the conversation that needs to be had at NFT.NYC 2025, is whether in a month from now we feel like we're in bull or bear times based on the ETH price, based on things moving, based on Bitcoin price or whatever. We still have a stage and a community that we're gathering together to say something that matters. And I think this question I'm asking you guys, your answer matters. And that's why I am trying to land here. So please, Marco, go ahead.
Yeah, it's I think I'm back. My internet was having some issues, but yeah, it's tough. Like, there's so much that goes on just behind the scenes, or just years of work that is unseen when you see the headlines, right? That's like basically the first thing that we pretty much tell everybody. It's like, all right, well, like, if you reference anything that has been successful in the past, you are referencing a snapshot in time that has context around it that's either been built for years or is was during a bull market and people were just willing to spend their money. There's macroeconomic conditions, especially right now, that affect people in all sorts of ways. And so it's not a simple answer, but I like to, we pride ourselves on kind of giving it to everybody we work with straight. We don't lie or say we can do something to try and get their business as a client. And so we'll typically look into their past history of like what they've done inside the ecosystem and outside of it. That usually helps identify the market that they can speak to, kind of the community that they can for sure rally. And then you start looking at like what network effects are there. A lot of your holders, like we'll start going into the data and looking on chain, like, a lot of your holders also hold, I don't know, grifters from X copy, right? So it's like, okay, like that is a motivated community that we can tap into, that, you know, the holders from there might be able to go be your advocates with other people. And so how do you get those network effects? And a lot of that happens on socials, behind the scenes. And it's typically not like, we're not necessarily always the one leading those, like the conversation necessarily with like these other networks. A lot of the time, like the artist has to be the one willing to like jump into the grifters chat to talk about it. They got to be themselves. Like that's what's going to sell, is authenticity. Even online, authenticity comes across. There's just something human about it. Yeah, Ben, I've been talking for a bit, so feel free to chime in. You're an artist yourself, so there's also like a lot of like gut feeling that we just kind of run off of, I'd say. And I think most of the artists we work with are kind of like that too, where they're like, my gut is telling me I can sell for this much, and usually they're right. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'm not gonna repeat anything you said because it's all good, and you covered a lot of it. But to add to it, I mean, we're very careful about being too hard of an influence. If an artist is really confident in their price, we're never going to talk them down. Because if they sell out really quick,
Right.
they're pointing their fingers at us. They could have made X amount more.
Yeah, could have made more. Right.
And then the other way around, we never talk people up. If they're like, I want to do this at 0.01, and we're like, we might say some stuff, especially on the TLX side. We're like, I mean, you're so-and-so, and like, I don't know, your stuff sells out super fast, and maybe 0.01 is too cheap for a collection of 500, for example. I'm just making up numbers.
Sure.
But we're very careful about pushing too hard on that, because the opposite can happen, where they don't sell out. And once again, they're pointing our fingers at us. And so we're just like, we're there to, collaborate creatively. We definitely, tell people, I tend to watch the macronomics a little bit more than most people on our team. So I get a good feel, and you can't market time. There's no such thing as market timing. People will say they can.
You can't.
Statistically, you're wrong more than you're right, even the best hedge funds in the world. But you can feel when things are pulling back and people's tighten their purse strings a little bit. And so we'll sometimes, if that happens and we have a planned drop for next week and tariff wars blow up, we might kind of factor that in a little bit and be like, well, it's going to be tough selling this next week because the fear index just like hit an all-time low. But we try not to be economicists too much in these relationships. So I think most of it's just about encouraging people to get out there and build their brand, tell their story, and really using our self-service products and Transient's kind of network to help where we can. But I mean, sometimes we got to get real with artists. Like, you got to go grind. No platform is going to be a magic
Absolutely.
one click, 2-click, whatever.
Nope.
The solution to your lack of eyeballs or your lack of sales provenance. We have artists that definitely expect it and have gotten mad that their collection didn't sell out. And we're like, where did you market this? Who was your audience? I didn't see it on Twitter. What's your past? Like, where did this 1 ETH price come from? I've never seen that in your history before.
Right.
So
yeah, I think the unfortunate truth a little bit is that, like, to be an artist, you have to also be kind of a good marketer, at least, if not business person, but at least a marketing person. And it's a learned skill. And like I said, you got to be authentic about it too. So like, you got to do it in the way that feels good to you.
And you got to be in the trenches. It was before it was Discord. So it's questionable, like what the Discord of today is. And also that depends on where you're at in the globe, right? If you're out of America, it's being in the Telegram chat. So if you're here in the States, it's probably being inside X and really being the reply guy, or whatever it means for you. It means for you. As we come to a close, we've had 9 comments across the 4. We're streaming live this conversation to X and YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, the NFT.NYC channels. And so anybody that's paying attention, thanks for your listening to our conversation. We appreciate that. For those that have left a comment, I want to mention one thing to you, Marco. Ant Woman said, thankful for 7160.
Oh, that's great.
With one little smiley faces and hearts all around. And what I want to recognize for Solidity developers, and you, Marco, being an example of a Solidity developer that has gone through the process of staying in this industry and building a business and infrastructure around your ability to code smart contracts and co-create these things. Like, you're not the author of 7160. You didn't start Transient Labs so you could do 7160. It emerged as a natural progression because you're a Solidity artist. You're not selling your Solidity code as Ben might sell art or as the other artist might sell art, but you're still an artist. And so when you co-create 7160 with other Solidity artists and developers and coders, what you don't anticipate is Ant Woman telling the world how thankful she is for it. What you often hear as a coder is like, the deadline's passed. When's this going to be done? There's something wrong with the code. This is not working in this wallet. This is not working on this marketplace. Why didn't we just do things the easier way? Why do we have to know? So what I want to remind you, Marco, and all of your peers, is that oftentimes you're not really given the honor and respect and credit for the art form that is creating new things across the Ethereum protocol. And so in light of that, I just want to make sure that you feel recognized and that you take the thanks in, because it is important that people acknowledge that you have created new means by which they as artists can bring their art form to their community and bring it to new people. And so I think there's something that we are missing in our industry is this encouragement, right? I think of encouragement as like putting courage inside somebody. So Marco, I want to put courage in you. And I want to put courage in all the other Solidity developers out there, for them to feel like just because things are good doesn't mean they can't be great. Just because this works good enough doesn't mean I can't push the limits on what other new creative idea could me and my peers come up with. And so that's where I wanted to land our conversation, was just to recognize the significance of your work, Marco, and the significance of the work of all your peers, some of which you know and love to hang out with and get to see at NFT.NYC, and many of which you'll never have a conversation with. You guys speak different languages, you work on different projects, but all of you together are what's causing Ethereum to remain relevant and causing Ethereum to be the most exciting protocol by which artists can bring their art in a crypto collectible digital asset form and do it in a way that there's a community, not just of collectors, but of infrastructure companies like yourself and marketplaces and wallets and layer 2s and all this infrastructure working together across this protocol. Not to say there isn't room for other layer 1s, obviously there is, but I think this is something that's important for us to settle into and settle on. So on behalf of the industry, Marco, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Ben, thank you for being a co-founder. I know you guys have Chris as a third. Tell him hello on my behalf, and I look forward to seeing you guys June 24th through 26th there in Times Square for our next event.
Yeah, we're excited. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.
My friend. I'll see you then.
See ya.
Bye.
Welcome, NFT.NYC community. My name is Ian Utile. This is my wife, Riza, and this is our home. And we're calling these Beachside Chats. I probably should have changed my name. It just says my name, but this is my wife, Riza, R-I-Z-A. And she and I had a blast last year at NFT.NYC. We had, like 16 people on our team with us. We had the big booth. We did 250 interviews using the Attention Live product. You did a keynote on the legal stage.
Yes.
So you talked about education. That was kind of fun. So for anybody that's watching us live, thank you for your attention. If you watch this in an hour or a day, or maybe it's our great grandkids watching in 100 years, hello, everybody. But we're just going to have a conversation and share that with you on behalf of the NFT.NYC community. This won't be too long. We'll probably chat for 10 minutes or so, and then I have a couple more interviews coming in. But I thought it'd be fun to come out on the balcony. So, honey.
Yes.
I first mentioned NFT.NYC when we had met at the Philippine Blockchain Week event a couple years back. And you didn't tell me that you applied to be a speaker.
Yeah.
And so I saw you on the speaker page.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, how did that happen? And of course, it's because you went through the process of saying, hey, I have something to say about education. So maybe you could give a little background about what you've done in education over the last couple of decades.
Oh, yes. I've been teaching, I taught English online for over 20 years, exactly 22 years. And I was also a founder of an online English school, which actually ran for about 8 years. And yeah, that was my profession before. And even I met you. And that is why in NFT.NYC, I was thinking like, how can we turn our, digital, not only that our diplomas, our certificate into a digital asset?
Right.
Like, how can we protect that? So that is why last year, my talk focused on the role of NFTs in education.
And so over the last 22 years, you primarily taught like CEOs, English as a second language.
Yes.
And you do that online. I think you said you started doing that on Skype,
Actually, Yahoo Messenger.
Yahoo Messenger,
yes.
That was it. And you've done this in 35 countries.
Yes.
And so last year at your keynote, you mentioned that you've had friends that have had their certificates stolen.
Exactly.
Like you've had a friend that got a dental degree to be a dentist.
Yes.
And somebody takes a picture and like, isn't this your degree number? And somebody stole it. And so the whole idea is, why don't we put certificates, diplomas, all things having to do with education on the blockchain so that it's immutable and it's trustworthy and people don't have to worry about it. So that was last year's talk. What was a highlight for you during what you got to share? And I know that when we first met, one of the things that you had shared with me is that you wanted to be a TED Talk speaker.
Yes.
And so I think, there was like a cool moment for you, like, wow, I got to speak on the stage at NFT.NYC. And then after that, you and I ended up speaking at dozens of conferences all over Asia and Middle East and America. And so we've had a fun year in that regard. But what was a highlight for you being at NFT.NYC? Because a lot of people that will be speakers this year, they're speakers for the very first time. And so what was your anticipation leading into it? And what was the experience like for you that first time?
All right. So when I was teaching English online before, I always used TED Talk as my material for my students. I always ask them to watch the videos, and then we will discuss about that topic. And I was so amazed how this TED Talk speakers do. And I also taught many people from different countries about public speaking. So I have taught myself, why not me, talk in front on stage? And NFT.NYC is actually my first ever speaking engagement ever. I have never had a speaking engagements in the Philippines, and it was so it was so amazing that my first speaking engagement was here in America, and it's NFT.NYC. So the highlight is that I want to encourage people that you also can, be a speaker. All right, you can also educate people not only in your country but all over the world. So through NFT.NYC is actually a great thing for me. So when I came back to the Philippines after that NFT.NYC, that is the time that I became a speaker in the Philippines, which is actually one of the biggest events, which is called the Philippine Blockchain Week.
Right. You spoke many times at that.
Yes.
So this year, we're taking our 3 sons
Mhm.
to NFT.NYC. My talk, I'm going to be doing the closing keynote. It's going to be fun for the first day on the 25th. You and I will MC the main stage together for the last couple hours. My talk is tokenized communities,
Mhm.
and I'll talk about NFTs, meme communities,
Mhm.
and the way the AI plays into all that. But you'll be doing a keynote before me, and yours is basically the story of how you've helped our boys to create their own NFTs using AI, and the way that you have basically walked through the custom process with each of our children, 2 of them being digital artists and 1 of them wanting to do a book series.
Mhm.
So as you look forward to your talk, like basically mom's perspective
Mhm.
of helping 3 boys, actually launch their digital projects, launch their assets, and leverage AI to do so, and do so with this medium, these
Mhm.
crypto collectibles, digital asset world. What are you looking forward to for this upcoming keynote?
Okay, so my keynote will be entitled Family Collaboration Through NFTs and AI. So my session for this NFT NYC talk will be very inspiring to not only to mothers but to the family, where technology can I will share how technology can actually deepen the family bond. We can use technology to collaborate. I will share how we both inspire our children and train our children to use AI on how they can create their digital arts, or their digital art turn into NFTs. And of course, our teen son Malachi, his book journey, also we taught him, we trained him on how to use AI tools so that he can, leverage his book journey.
For those interested in following your journey,
Mhm.
you are at Riza Utile
Yes.
everywhere,
Mhm.
RIZAUTILE.
Exactly.
You and I met in Manila.
Mhm.
Manila is number 1, 2, or 3 across many industries. So they've been number 1. I think currently they're number 2 or 3 on the most blockchain wallets being used. At one point, they had more people using MetaMask in Manila, the city,
Mhm.
the metro city of Manila, than the rest of the world combined. Their top AI use for a couple of industries. They've adopted AI and blockchain and digital asset technology across many of their different government pushes. So sometimes when I have people that English is a second language,
Mhm.
it doesn't sound like English is your second language, but it is, right? You first spoke the
Yeah.
native Filipino language, Tagalog. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to step out of the camera,
Okay.
and I want you just to look at the camera, and I just want you to share for one moment in your native language. Last year we had dozens of people come
Yeah.
from the Philippines that were speakers or artists.
Mhm.
Of course, some will still come this year, but with the international limitations, maybe they're a little bit less than before. And so maybe you could just speak to your own people. For those that don't know, there's 26 million people
Mhm.
in the Metro Manila area. There's over 100 million people in the country. I personally think it's the most, of all the emerging developing nations, I'm more excited about the Philippines than any other.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about the city of Manila than any other. So why don't you, as a representative of your people,
Mhm.
just kind of close us out for a few moments and just share in what they would feel
Mhm.
strongest. So I'm gonna step out and you do that, and then we'll end.
In my own language?
That's right. Right there. There you go.
Mabuhay sa lahat ng mga Pilipino dyan. Pinagmamalaki ko, of course, ang aking sarili at ang ating bansa na meron tayong representative for NFT.NYC. And I hope meron din tayong Filipino na magre-represent, hindi lang ako. So join me in NFT.NYC 2025 as I will share, of course, my thoughts. And this is a very inspiring talk for the family, how can we use technology to deepen the family bonds, all right, of our family, and to use NFTs, to use AI, to use AI powered projects to have a more creative, moments with our family. So sa lahat ng mga Pilipino dyan, kita-kita tayo. Kung kayo ay nasa NFT.NYC this coming June, ay pwede nyo akong i-approach or CEM. Mabuhay.
Okay, producers, I'm still going to stay on for a second. I got a few more minutes. I thank you, honey, for joining me.
Yes.
I'm going to take this off. So everybody still out there, I'm going to continue to talk to you for a second. So again, I've decided to call these beachside chats because I live here on the sand. This is the Soquel Creek right behind me. We turn it into a lagoon a couple times a year for the fish to breed. This is the Venetian Resort. It's the oldest beachside resort in all of California. We got the Capitola Wharf. It was built crazy. It was built like 165 years ago, and it got destroyed once again and just got restored. Everyone's always trying to achieve authenticity, not just in our industry, not just the NFT or the broader Web3 industry, not just AI, but just in general, whether you're in media or you're in education or you're in nonprofit work or whatever it is that you are in, there's a desire for authenticity, for vulnerability, for something to be real, right? And so one reason why I asked my wife to come in is just to have an authentic moment. One reason why we're going with our 3 sons to NFT.NYC this year, and we're not going with 1 or 2 dozen people, is because we don't want to go and just do the same thing that we've done before. You know, I contacted the founders, Jody Rich and Cameron Bale. They let me know that OpenSea's back as our foundational sponsor again, which is what we started with. And I said to the NFT.NYC team, I said, listen, ever since London 2022, I've become less and less integrated with the team, and I've become more and more individual. I have my own team, my own media team, my own booth, my own deal. I'm running multiple businesses, and so I'm making sure my businesses are dialed in and taken care of, and I'm getting biz dev deals done. And I said, this year I want it to be different. This year I just want to come back to what we started with, right? For this to be our community event about the community, and for me to be a support to the team. I have this intuitive sense that this year, the NFT.NYC that happens on June 24th, 25th, 26th at the Marriott Marquis 2025 is going to be a year where a lot of things that once were started and were paused, a lot of things that were launched but died, let's call it a stillbirth, right? The life was there, but it didn't quite make it to actually become a baby and have a chance at being an adolescent and grow up. A lot of these things that once were you out there, me, we're passionate about, but then the energy fizzled. And then we think to ourselves, am I ever going to get back to that partnership? Am I ever going to get back to that client? Am I ever going to get back to that vendor? Am I ever going to get back to that community? I believe intuitively that this year, the NFT.NYC that we're about to do a month from now, that this year is going to be a year where broken things are restored, where dead things come to life, where things that felt like they would probably never be revisited get revisited, where there is a harvest for all of the tilling of the ground, the planting of the seeds, the watering of the soil. Obviously, I'm using an analogy, but there'll be a harvest of this. And so in prior years, I think a lot of people functioned as I had in the last several years, where it was like, well, how do I get the most out of this event? How does my company get the most out of this event? How do I make sure that I extract value and bring value and, you know, the whole exchange? But I think a lot of people are going to come with a more relational thought. I think us not being the Javits Center, you know, even though we had like 10,000 people come to the event last year and the year before, people just came in to do their talk. They came in to look at their art. They came in to listen to their friend, and they were on to the side events. But in 2022, when we did the event at the Marriott Marquis, we had 18,500 people bought tickets. We had over 500 side events. So it was like 35,000 people that came into town for this event. And we aren't focused on numbers like we want to have that big of an event again this year or even next year. We're focused on having a legitimate community event where the companies like NFT Cred with the One Hub, companies like mine, Attention Live, we're on our 4th version of our product since we launched it back in 2019 when we first launched NFT.NYC. We finally have a consumer-ready, enterprise-level product for Attention Live for creators. Many people now have gone through the couple bear markets and have built something that actually matters. And now a chance for us to go back and revitalize relationships, revitalize partnerships, revitalize opportunity. And so one thing that I want to encourage people to do, don't try to cultivate authenticity in an inauthentic way. Ask yourself, okay, authentically, who will I see at the event that at one point we were on the same page, we were running the same direction, we were going to do great things together, and then one or both of us ended up going different directions? Can I revisit that? What community did I make commitments to? Did I make promises to? Did I say we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to make these things happen? You can count on us. Speculate against our art, our membership program, our collectible art, whatever it is. Can you go back and make good on some of those commitments? Can you go back and revisit the ability to have integrity and nobility and be a valiant human that does the right thing because it's the right thing to do? These are the questions that I'm looking in the mirror and asking myself. These are the questions that I'm inviting you to consider yourself. And with that, I will send us to the music, and I'll be back again with my next interview in just a moment. Welcome to my home NFT.NYC community. We're calling these things beachside chats because that is really the Pacific Ocean behind me. I've already done a few interviews today. Looking forward to this 4th one. For those that are on the live stream, maybe you just popped in or you've been with us for a moment. Maybe you're watching this in a week or in a year. And we thank you for your attention. My name is Ian. If I haven't said that already, I've done over 500 of these types of one-on-one conversations during the last, 7 years since we had the first idea of doing NFT.NYC in 2018. And I enjoy it. I'm very curious. So I like asking questions and learning. And if you watched my conversation with Dirk from Upland, or with Marco and Ben from Transient Labs, or even the conversation I just had with my wife, Riza, who is my business partner and partner in all things, I'm a curious guy. I'm always wanting to find out, even like just staying on the balcony with her a moment ago. I'm like, well, what is she going to say? I'm asking her authentic questions. I'm about to bring up Pindar Van Arman. He is an AI artist, roboticist, pushing the boundaries with Cloud Painter. And so his painting robot doesn't just make art, it imagines. Pindar's work sits at the fascinating edge of human creativity and machine intelligence. I'm excited to see how algorithms are becoming artists. It doesn't matter if these large language models are soulless, they still are a reflection of humanity. And when you have people like my next guest that puts his own human primal DNA into the output of what these machines can do, it really blurs the line of where the machine starts and the human ends, where the large language model ends and the collection of humans working with it begins. And so, Pindar, I'd love for you to come up and share a conversation with you.
Hey, well, hello, and thank you for having me here. I always love talking about this, and I have to admit, I'm envious. I'm looking out your window, and that looks gorgeous, and here I am stuck in my studio, which yeah, it's great, but that beach looks awesome. And
it's I'm very grateful to be here. My dad and I built this place 23, 24 years ago, and I remember being a 21-year-old kid and sitting on this balcony and thinking, somebody gets to live here. Man, I want to live here. And then a couple of years ago, it opened up. So my family loves it. My wife and I and our 3 boys are here. It's very, very small. It's like a little tiny beach house. And I always say, we could go move over to this big place or that big place. They're like, no. We are staying in the little beach house. So I think sometimes, it's nice to have this, but at the same time, you're in an office, you're in a studio. This is where you make art. This is where you create things, co-create things. And hopefully you feel very inspired just in that space where you've done a lot of cool stuff. Tell me a bit about your background, because you've been at this much longer than like this is not the new hot thing for you. Anybody that looks into your background understands that you've been pushing the boundaries of art and technology for quite some time, and you continue to press new boundaries. I would call you a forerunner, right? You're the one that's on a bleeding edge, new ideas, and people are kind of drafting behind you as a leader, as somebody that's willing to take the hit. So give us a little background on yourself, please.
Well, thank you. Thanks. And thanks. Appreciate that. Background, about 20 years ago, I've always been an artist, always been a painter. And about 20 years ago, I just ran into this, I ran into a wall, because even though I was compelled to paint and create every day, my son was just born and I didn't have the time. My firstborn, and I just didn't have the time anymore. And just after a lot of disappointment and not being able to paint every day as much as I used to, I was like, wait a minute, I can just have a robot paint most of it for me, and then I'll finish up the paintings. So the robot started sort of as a studio assistant, and it started really simple, connecting dots, painting by numbers. I would say those were the first algorithms.
Wow.
And the idea was they would paint all day while I was at work. Then I would come home, get the kids to sleep, and when the kids were asleep, I could finish up the painting in an hour. I was going to cut the process of making a painting from like a whole day endeavor to 1 hour.
Wow.
I failed miserably, but the algorithms grew over the years and went from connecting dots and color by numbers. This thing where it did first algorithm I remember was K-means clustering, where I was like, listen, I don't want to give you the numbers to paint and areas to paint with it. I want you to figure that out yourself. If I give you a photo, you find out, you break it down and decide how you're going to paint all the colors. And then a whole bunch of algorithms. And then the biggest one was that was around 2005. The biggest advance, though, it took me 5 years to get there. The biggest advance was I came home one day from work, the brush had fallen off and broken. But the robot was still painting away like a fool. They're going through all the motions, but like the painting was half done. The brush is on the floor, and I was like, this has to be smarter, right? It's a printer. It occurred to me, this is just a printer. When the printer malfunctions, And so I added cameras, and the cameras, that's when it became reflective. I added cameras, and I was like, I no longer want you to print predetermined instructions. I want you to make marks and then respond to those marks using AI. And that's when it took off, like conceptually, artistically, and like, 7 years later, I have probably my favorite work, which you can see over my shoulder right here, the emerging faces. There they go, the emerging faces, the magnum opus. Only 11 of those left. I still have. And that's when I give them instructions. I give the robot instructions like, use a lot of AI, but I want you to use a GAN to imagine a face, because GANs were just popping up, and all of a sudden I realized AI was truly creative. I was like, I want you to have a GAN to imagine a face, and then start painting it, but stop as soon as you recognize a face. So basically, like, and that's how humans do. We doodle until we see something, then we stop. We're like, okay, art's finished. And that was like, imagine a face, start painting it, but keep on looking for that face. And as soon as you see a face, stop. And I was like, wow, that's really nice conceptually. That's really nice because it explores what the creative process is. And it just made a lot of sense to me, because that's how I was as an artist. It was like, I always talk about Paul Klee, the artist, painter Paul Klee. He used to say, an artist makes marks and sees what the marks have done, and then takes a break after, and then like bakes the next mark based on how the previous marks. And that's basically Bit Painter, Cloud Painter, all the robots I've made over the years. I avoid naming them, by the way, because I think it's disingenuous to give them names, because it makes you think they have agency, and they're not. They're just tools.
Yes, I think that's important. A lot of people are hoping that they become more than tools. I think it's pretty unlikely, but we'll see how things play out. I want to acknowledge that we are live on 4 different platforms for NFT.NYC. We had Desanier give us a GM after you came on YouTube. Marion gave us a heart on LinkedIn. But most importantly, I want to read this. Awful Eye on X said, let's go. So glad I came on the live stream right now. I love you. You look great. You're 100% someone I look up to. And then he said, name one awful. So, there's something significant about being live, right? And having friends pop in, or associates pop in. You just mentioned, but I want to just acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge the community. Thank you for paying attention to what we're sharing with one another right now. You mentioned that machines, whether robots or robots with AI or AI without a body, they are tools. And so a lot of times people have a hard time without getting too tweaked on the sci-fi thing, right? They've seen so many dystopic movies. They can't get Blade Runner and Terminator and, Black Mirror and Altered Dreams Altered Carbon out of their head. And so they think, well, this is where we're going. It's bad. Or they think utopia, like we're all, it's all going to be good and there's not going to be any problems whatsoever. But then there's like the realistic practitioners like yourself. And you say, no, this is very practical. I don't want to take an entire day to paint. And so I have a robot. I don't name it. It's a tool that I've made. And it started off as just a thing that just paint by the numbers. Now it has cameras, and now it has AI software inside of it. But it's not a living organism. It's not my co-creator, even though I co-create with a tool. It's like a hammer, and I'm like a carpenter, and I'm slamming nails. But that takes a long time. So I got a nail gun. And these tools are like nail guns. Now I can put walls together a lot faster. And so can you just help me understand a little bit about how you have seen your own mindset change when it comes to robots and AI over time, and what areas are have remained the same and you don't think will change, and what areas have kind of changed in your mindset and your emotional approach? Because obviously it's different having a paint by the numbers thing, and then having it with cameras, and then having it with AI software, and it does become a bit more of a collaborative tool and less of just a lifeless tool that you put in your hand. So I'd love to get a little of the psychology from you, if you don't mind sharing.
First of all, hey, Awful Eye, thanks for saying that. The shout out goes, we just created an awesome piece of art. He did this amazing self-portrait. Check out my portrait gallery, anyone wants to see it. And I sent him a portrait that I did of him. Anyway, that's so interesting, and we are all surprised. So I would call my robots have been agentic. What I described is I came up with 24 algorithms. These algorithms fight with each other. And I was like, I'm going to teach it to do contrast. I'm going to teach it to do composition. I'm going to teach it to color by numbers, teach it to connect to that. So I gave it like all these tools, and then these tools are held together as it watches what it's doing and executes. And I always thought that's how agentic AI would come together. People would string together a lot of AI to do small tasks. When strung together, could do big tasks. That's what I thought. That's what everyone thought. Everyone in the AI community thought. But something happened, which is crazy. It all came together in these large language models, meaning like the large language models are now agentic, meaning like language is the thing that pulls everything together. And that was so mind-blowing for me. And why is that mind-blowing, Van Arman? It's mind-blowing to me because it's like, it makes me wonder, are we smart and intelligent because of language? Not the other way around. Not that we develop language because we're smart and intelligent, but the fact that we have language, we were able to become agentic as humans. And at its core, that's exactly what I'm doing with my art. You know, I'm making these pretty paintings, but every single system I've made and all the art I made is exploration of my own creativity and how does my creativity work, and seeing what's happening right now with large language models pulling together all these different agents that can do really crazy things. I just had some doing statistical analysis for me. I haven't coded in over a year because AI codes for me now. This is a fascinating thing to think about, how our own minds work. That and this is crazy. I talked to a lot of AI scientists. I talked to a lot of AI artists. I talked to a lot of AI researchers and pioneers. We're all surprised. Like, this is not how we thought it would happen. Like, it's actually crazy. It was out of nowhere that the large language models just started working. And so that's the cool part. The dystopian part, and like, I don't know where it's going. And I go between dystopian and utopian, back and forth. Utopian is it takes all of our jobs and none of us have to work anymore. And we realize that that's a good thing. We all maybe we all spend 8 hours a day or a week, 8 hours a week working for the man. And then the other 6 days we're doing our own thing, whatever we want. Play video games, make art, relax, because why would we need to do anything? That's the utopian version of that. You know, the fact that it takes all our jobs. The dystopian version, of course, is that it takes all our jobs and we don't rely.
We don't respond well.
Yeah, we don't respond well. So it's going to take all our jobs. That's guaranteed. It's inevitable.
Right.
I just saw a window washing robot today. I'm talking to my old friends in the AI space or in the programming space. They're all like me. They haven't lost their jobs yet, but they're like, holy cow, there's nothing to do. We're not hiring anyone. My team we're not growing. Whenever someone leaves, we stay smaller because all of us are 10 times the programmers we were 1 year ago.
That's right.
Like, I remember I had to deploy working with NFT.NYC. I'm working with NFT.NYC on a project, and I had deployed some of the Amazon cloud and make it work on AWS. This would have been a 2-week long endeavor in the past.
So much faster now. It's crazy.
Hours.
Right.
2 hours, 3 hours later, I'm deploying on AWS and it's working. And I'm like, unbelievable.
So I had a really interesting experience the last few months. I'm 44 today. When I was 18,
happy birthday.
No, not my birthday. I'm sorry. I'm in context of the story. But thank you for being so kind. When I was 18, I became strangely fascinated by fasting, water fasting. And I always wanted to do a 40-day water fast. And so from 18 until recently, I'd kind of worked my way up to doing like 3 days and then 5 days and then 7, then 10, then 12. And so I just completed a 40-day water fast, which is kind of a crazy thing to do. I don't recommend anybody does a 40-day water fast. I felt like it was my destiny. It was my Mount Everest of discipline. So I did it. So what I want to mention is this. A couple of years ago, when basically Midjourney started really taking the jobs of graphic designers and photographers, I'm hearing all these really negative comments from them. Last year, it was everyone that is getting paid $300, $500, $1,000 an hour in services, lawyers, consultants, that whole group. It's like, this is not good. They make mistakes. There's hallucinations. Like, you don't want to use this. And then behind the scenes, they're like, yeah, it's over for me. My profession's done. But I had the weirdest thing happen. So I know a lot of people across different faith paradigms that are global in like the nonprofit space. And so while I was on my 40-day fast, as you might imagine, I'm getting to day 30 and I haven't had anything in my body except for salt and water. You have some challenging emotional moments. And so I would go back and forth between Super Grok and ChatGPT Pro. And I started to like experiment outside the boundaries. And I started to say, okay, I have a mentor. This is my mentor. He's written 15 books. He and I have been friends for 10 years. I want you to imagine that I'm at his house right now. And I want you to read all of his books and look at all of his talks. And I want you to speak to me like it's him. I know you're not him, but I just want you to speak to me like you're him. And I want you to like say what you think he'd say. I'm on day 35 of my water fast. I need encouragement, but I don't want to call him. So it does it. And like, I'll be honest, like it was as though I was with him and it was like he was in the perfect mood and had all the right, perfect stuff just dialed in, right? And then I thought, well, what if I was a Catholic? What if I was a Buddhist and I could get this done for Dalai Lama? What if I was an atheist and I could ask for Bill Maher to give me encouragement? Like, it doesn't matter what your paradigm is. What matters is that everyone with a soul or spiritual mindset and anyone that is kind of in that range, regardless of what stream you're floating down or what river you say you're a part of, there's probably somebody's book that you like to read, somebody's talk that you'd like to hear, and you probably can't get access to them. So I text my friend the thing that the Grok and ChatGPT said to me, and he did not like it at all. He was very, very upset with me. He thought it was a violation of our friendship. He thought it was a violation of his personhood, and he made it spiritual. This is the devil. Wow. Which he's never said anything like that to me before. He's never said something's evil. He's never used all caps, never used exclamation marks. I've known him for 10 years. We've collaborated in business projects. And I remember sitting with my wife and thinking, okay, this is the next frontier of the new type of job that's being eroded. A very high niche type of thing. This man's written 15 books. He's spoken tens of thousands of hours that's been recorded. I had it ingested and I asked the machine, the soulless, lifeless machine, to reiterate what he might say to me in light of my situation at 1:30 in the a.m. when I can't sleep and I haven't had food for 35 days. And it communicates to me something that makes me cry. And I got tears streaming down my face. I'm like, it's like he's here with me right now. And I share it with him, and his response isn't, that is so incredible. Like, I never thought we'd get here. His response is, this is very, very bad. And I think this is the thing for artists, right? Like when you say, whether it's utopic and we all lose our jobs and we're happy about it, it's dystopic, we all lose our jobs and we implode because of it, or we get enslaved, or it's anti-dystopic, somewhere in between, but we still all lose our jobs. There are
we're all going to lose our jobs, yeah.
There are new areas by which erosion will take place. And there are areas by which we as humanity have not really considered that robots will be carpenters and plumbers and electricians, not just drivers. And robots will be painters and sculptors, not just digital artists. And so as we think through the concept of people responding to these realities, and I know I kind of shared a bit of a personal story, but I think it hits home on, we haven't really considered what it means when people lose their jobs and what it means for people to co-create with these tools. Like you're now co-creating code and websites. You mentioned, hey, you can do something instead of 2 weeks on AWS, you do it in hours. And now your robots that are painting with you are taking it much, much further. So based on everything I just shared, does that spark any thoughts around how does a human move forward with AI? And how do you deal with the critics that say, this is wrong, you shouldn't even be doing this, like you shouldn't be creating these robots, this is going to harm our industry? Like how do you manage that? And don't forget,
massive sympathy to the artists. And I've been getting hate mail from the beginning. I've been getting hate mails like, why are you trying to make a robot take our jobs? It's hard enough as it is for us. Like I've been uninvited from shows. I've been like, wow. I get into an art show and then like, get out, just, we don't want your art in here. Anyway, so, wow. But robots will never replace human artists. they will make art, and I don't think long from now they'll make art. But who cares what art a robot makes unless that art speaks to us on an emotional level? The audience for robotic art and true AI art, not like these, when it happens, it hasn't happened yet, is AI becomes a person, makes art, and who's going to like that art? Other AI, not us. It's not even going to make sense to us. It might even be in frequencies that we don't even understand. We're limited to like frequencies from ultraviolet to infrared when we're looking at visual art. AI is not. They can look at every color like beyond us. So when they make art, it's going to be for other AI, and that's going to be the audience. So how does it affect us? They will never replace the importance of human artists because we make art for humans. But here's where it's killing us, and this is why I have sympathy. Artists make job doing stuff like, I have a lot of friends that used to do storyboards for advertising agencies, right? And so what was their art practice? Their art practice was making paintings. How did they pay the bills and have a beautiful home? They made storyboards for an advertising company. That is dead now. Advertising agents, there's no more storyboarding. There's chat diffusion. Like there's no more hiring of artists. So artists used to have a bunch of ways to make money by being artistic, and those are gone. They are gone. Then no one has to pay an artist to do those anymore. So that's where it hurts the artist. It's not stealing art from the artist. It's stealing creative jobs from the artists that used to be what paid the bills. And that's where we're hurting. And that's why I'm sympathetic. And so
I think we have to be sympathetic because so what I think a lot of times is we're going to anti-dystopia, and humans will start to do more human things again, right? We'll stop driving. We'll stop doing Excel spreadsheets. We'll stop trying to take a textbook and teach it to kids and have 50 kids look at us in seats. But we will create, we will teach, and we will learn. We will promote, right? We will lead communities and be part of communities. Like there are things that we will still definitely do that are much more human for us to do. When you think about your future as an artist, what are you most looking forward to as automation becomes more effective and AWS goes from 2 weeks to 2 hours to 2 seconds, and as your robot goes from getting 90% done to 99% done to 99.9% done, what is it that you're thoughtful of? Like, I can do more quantity, I can do higher quality. So what types of things are you hopeful happen in your own career as an artist based on automation speeding up even faster?
I'm going to tell you something weird, which it just occurred to me. So I'm testing this out. I mean, I'm not sure if this is what I actually believe, but like what I'm hoping for AI to get so good at doing everything for us that we stop as a society, as a person, as a country, or that we stop defining ourselves by our jobs. I stopped defining myself as an artist and start defining myself as, when I think about it, the only thing that really matters, the only job that I have that matters is being a parent.
Right.
Like how good I am to my kids. That is it. Everything else is just it's just meaningless. So I'm almost hoping that AI shocks all of us by stealing all of our jobs, taking away all the prestige of these, like if you have a prestige job, who cares? All that matters is that you exist. And this shocks us so much that we realize, you know what? All that matters is that I exist. And all that matters is I'm in this universe observing things. My only role is to, if I do choose to bring someone into the world, is usher them in and say, hey, we're in this crazy universe. And you have no obligation to anything or anyone other than to enjoy it. And they're like, oh, what if I do nothing with my life? Great, good for you. Like, who cares if you don't do anything with your life? I think right now as a society, it's shameful if you don't, like contribute something great. Or be famous or make waves. Who cares?
Right.
And I think as one AI takes that away from us, we'll finally like reach this nirvana that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's good enough just to be. And I've never thought of it. I've never said this in a talk before, so this is interesting. And I'll have to go back and listen to it and see if I sound like a nut or if it's really enlightened.
No. Yeah. Well, I hope to cultivate something that allows you to speak with me in a real conversation, two dudes hanging out, and allows
seeing that beach, like I just want to be on that beach. That's it.
I often think of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And the reason I think of Star Trek is what's implied is a universal maximum income, not a universal basic income, right? What's implied is that Kirk and the person that became the bartender both wanted to go in space and explore. And Kirk doesn't get paid more than the bartender. There is nothing about money. Like life
Yeah.
is already set on Earth. But
Yeah.
Kirk wants the responsibility of taking all of that weight of leadership on his shoulders. And the bartender likes to cut loose and tell stories and hang out with everybody. It's not like Kirk is the superhero and the bartender is just the little bartender that only knows how to make drinks. It's that they both have a universal maximum income on Earth. They both have all their needs met for the rest of their life. They both have their housing and their food and a community, and they have purpose on Earth by existing and living. But they want to go explore the stars, and they have a different desire, and they both have respect for each other. The bartender's glad somebody's leading, and Kirk's glad somebody's making drinks. And I think that that is the type of thing that I'm hoping anti-dystopia leads to. My question to you as we kind of get toward ending our conversation is, how do you see this playing out with creatives? Because some creatives are going to be the leaders of industry, and some creatives are going to be the bartenders of industry, right? And both probably aren't. It's not going to make a big difference whether they're globally famous or they just create art for their community, whether their art is comedy oriented or their art makes people cry, because if we already are taken care of financially, it doesn't make a big difference. The question is, how does this play out to where people are motivated as artists to not do what they think they should do to get famous, but instead they do what is truly natural and authentic to them as a human?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just talked about this earlier. What I learned in art school, I once looked around art school. You don't learn what you think you're going to learn in art school. Was that I looked around and I realized the best artists were. I was in a class one day and I looked around and everyone. I realized everyone in the room was independently wealthy. None of them worked. None of them were ever going to work in their life, and they were great artists. And the best art comes when you don't have to worry about the sales. I've until recently, I've never had that luxury. And you know, like most of my career, like, you know, so I just hope the best art comes when you're not worried about sales. But that doesn't solve the problem. Is like, are you worried about fame? You know, I don't know, but you know, I wouldn't care as much if I realized I can make anything I want, and I had a small group of friends that loved my stuff and I liked their stuff, and we found each other. Yeah, that's all I would need. So I'm hoping it gets there. But by the way, I think in the future, it's going to become pure creator economy, where people that want to create will create what they want, and people that don't want to create will play. You know, big criticism we get here in the States is like, I always hear about this, is like, oh, what about all the people that stay in the basement and play video games all day? And I'm like, great, if that's what they want to do, yeah, good for them. And you know, these people do get creative. If you're in the video game community, some go on to make video games. Some of them make streams of themselves playing video. It's just the utopia vision is if we get over this idea that hard work is important, and as opposed to like, let's just do what we want to do. I hope we get there. I don't know. We'll see. Well, and we'll see fast in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even the next 2-3 years.
It could be months. We don't realize how fast things are going.
Yeah, it could be.
We don't realize how fast things are going. But I like how Andrew Yang redefined universal basic income with a freedom dividend. So when he ran in 2020, he redefined UBI, which was seen as a socialist concept, and he redefined it as a freedom dividend. And if you're a citizen of the United States, you should be given a freedom dividend, $2,000 a month, because you're a citizen of the most wealthy, prosperous country in the world. I'm waiting for the universal maximum income to be defined not by a political party, not the right or the left, not the Labour Party or Conservatives in UK or Democrats or Republicans here, but I'm looking for it to be defined by basically AI working with heads of state to say, okay, AI is the culmination of your and my ancestors, of your and my thoughts, of all humanity, the 8 billion people that live here, the billions that have come before us. Now we have these tools, and humans should be receiving a dividend, a universal maximum income, based on the fact that our generation, the generations to come, the generations that have been, all have led to this moment. And so I really appreciate you sharing yourself vulnerably with me today and letting me ask like some unique philosophical questions. I will mention one other comment that I really love from Macho Migo on X. He said, I actually feel that in my soul, just being is more than good enough. And so, I think when you said to yourself 5 minutes ago, I wonder if I even believe what I said. I have to go back and listen to this and think, am I crazy? Well, to Macho Migo, you weren't crazy, because to Macho Migo, you just validated the feeling that they've had that just being is more than good enough. And in a time where mental health is so often talked about, is there ever a moment where we need to just be validated that being alive and being present and being available is the main thing that we're here to do?
Wow.
And I thank you for being here with me.
I'm working there. I want to get there. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get there.
I think it's a lifetime process.
Yeah, thank you so much thanks everyone that listened, and thank you for having me, and thank you for getting me into a space I haven't talked about before. That was fun.
That was fun. I'll see you in New York very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
See you later.
Bye. NFT.NYC community, I am loving you right now. My name is Ian. I've been a part of NFT.NYC since it was an idea. Started talking about it in 2018 when I had Future of Blockchain at Twitter's headquarters. And the founders, Jody Rich and Cameron Bale, said, hey, we're going to do this NFT thing. And we think there's something here with digital assets and crypto collectibles. They roped in Devin and Alex from OpenSea, and the five of us started dreaming together. And I had no idea what anybody was talking about. I had been collecting stamps and coins and art. The first big expense I ever made as an adult was an original painting. I had been collecting sports cards, Star Wars memorabilia. Man, I collected flowers. I collected rocks. I mean, I was like a squirrel. I collected everything. But I could not understand the concept of collecting digital things. That was foreign to me. So I told Jody and Cam, hey, you guys are going to launch this thing February 2019. I'll fly out to Times Square. That sounds bitchin'. And I'll interview everybody. We literally had more speakers that year than attendees. It was like 100 speakers and 50 attendees. There's like 150 of us at the PlayStation Theater. And I said, I want to interview everybody before the event happens. So at the end of 2018, I remember one day I did 12 interviews. And then at the event, I didn't get to interview everybody. So I did like 60 interviews that one day event. So just when we started, I did like almost 100 interviews. And then every year since then, I've felt honored to continue to be invited by the team as one of the co-producers of the event and a partner to the team to bring in amazing speakers and people in the industry to have these conversations. So I'm about to bring up my fifth and final guest for today. But I've done this, as I mentioned already, 500 or so times, and every conversation has the potential of being meaningful to me, meaningful to my guest, and hopefully meaningful to everyone that's watching us live across. We're on 4 different platforms for NFT.NYC right now. People might be watching this in a day or in a year. Welcome to the party. But let me introduce my next guest. You might find her online at Jenny_Pepin, JENI_PEPEN. Jennifer Pepin Aquino. She is also known as Siren AI. She's an artist, a community builder, and a co-founder of One Love Art from winning NFTs and contests to leading a global art community shows how heart and hustle build Web3's strongest foundations. Again, heart and hustle. I like to think of noble, savage, humble, confident. It's not one thing. It takes more than one thing to really be successful in this. I'd love to bring Jen up and to share a conversation with you now.
Hi.
Welcome to the party. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I love that, noble savage. I was smiling the moment that you said it.
Yeah, I first said that at our London event, 2022. I was supposed to talk about something, like about our industry, but Sam Bankman-Fried had just gotten busted. Do Kwon was getting in trouble. Alex was getting in trouble with Celsius, and I thought, I need to deal with this. There are too many savage things happening and not enough nobility. So I remember I went up and I said, hey, we need both. You can't just be savage. You can't just be goody two shoes noble. You can't just have hustle or just have heart. You got to have both. So yes, it all started at one of our events. Well, welcome to my house. This is the beach behind me. Where is home for you, Jen?
Tampa, Florida. I'm originally from New York, but I moved out here like a lot of New Yorkers, probably in like 2011. So I've been here for quite some time and I really like it.
Awesome. Well, it's much different than New York. Were you in Manhattan area when you lived in New York, or were you upstate?
No, I was outer boroughs. So Queens and then Brooklyn.
Okay. So still in kind of the urban area then.
Sure.
Okay. And so tell me a bit about your background and how you became known as Siren AI and you starting One Love Art DAO. Just give our audience a little bit of an understanding of kind of how you got to this point.
Sure. So I guess I could go all the way back to how I even came across this space. I was a crypto investor first, as far back as 2013, and then found out about NFTs during the pandemic. My husband is a painter and had said to me, hey, what is this all about? I don't really know the tech world, so why don't you go and find out how this all works? And so I did. And originally I entered the space more so as a collector and trying to like really educate myself so that I could then help him launch his first collection, which went really well. He actually was featured on a billboard by NFT.NYC, which was super exciting. And then I found myself like really like loving the concept of everything, of decentralization, of the ability to tap into a global market, of just the camaraderie that I was seeing amongst artists. And then was also influenced by my peers to consider becoming creative because it seemed like my collecting habits were showing people that I had a good eye. And so I, at that time, did not consider myself an artist, a visual artist. I love poetry. I've been writing, since I can recall. I'm a historian. I studied history. So I'm good with language, but I never really was good with executing as far as like visual arts. And so somebody said, well, why don't you try AI? It just seems like somebody who has the soft skills would probably really excel. Like just describe what it is that you're feeling and what you want to see. And so I started playing around with that and then was like, oh, okay, I'm actually pretty good at this. And then started, training my AI, bringing in my own photography, bringing in my likeness into some of the artworks, things like that. And then before I knew it, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. But what should I call myself? And at that time, I had already attended many spaces. I was a co-host in a couple, and everybody kept saying that my voice had this like sort of softness and melodious like type to it.
Yeah.
And I love, like I told you, history. I love mythology, and just started thinking like, what would be a cool name for myself? And so I came up with Siren AI. But it's a double entendre because I'm also Latina. So in Spanish, mermaid is sirena. So I was like, all right, we're going to go with this. And before I knew it, I was cranking out artworks and selling. Wow. Yeah, that's how that happened. And then sometime around the bear market, my friends and I were just observing the space and noticed that a lot of artists kind of felt like they were left high and dry by the situation. And I wanted to create something like a centralized place where all artists could sort of like touch base with each other, share, empower one another. And before we knew it, from that came One Love Art DAO. First, it was just One Love Art, like just a collective. And then we decided to go ahead and take that step of making it an organization. So we are a US-based organization out of Delaware, but we are also, you know, totally believers of decentralization, and so believe that making it a DAO in the Web3 capacity was also really important. And so we're inching on 2 years in July, and we've done a lot of great things. We've done exhibitions, we've done a billboard takeover, we've done Miami Art Week, we've done just so many cool things with each other to help each other. Yeah.
So tell me a bit about some artists as well as communities are resilient and others collapse. So you have one artist that is resilient, and it doesn't matter if they sold out an art piece or a collection, and then the next time there's not a lot of interest, they're still about it. They're sticking to it. They're faithful to themselves. Some communities, they're resilient as long as the price is stable or going up on an asset that they collected. But then as soon as the asset appears to be going down in value, then the community collapses. What do you find to be the attribute of individual artists and the attribute of communities that allow them to make it through bulls and bears without being shaken?
I think at the heart of it, it has to do with how a person or an organization defines value. So if it's simply a dollar sign and not a long-term vision from the onset, or even something that isn't necessarily tied to money, like money is obviously going to be a component of it. You know, like, I'm not going to sound Pollyannish, but I think there has to be an and, like, what else is there? And so I feel like the artists who continue to create and who continue to show up in the space are the people who are going to create regardless of whether they were necessarily going to make a sale or not. It's almost like air. It's almost like breathing. Like, they can't not create. They can't not share that art. They can't not be somewhat in communication with the people that they have cultivated connections with over, you know, however long of a period of time they've been doing it. So I think that that's the reason. And then I could say easily that's the same case with us. Like, we were never created with the goal of becoming like the richest DAO or the richest nonprofit artist organization in the United States. We were created because we really believed in our mission. And so whether it's an up or down cycle, as long as that stays at the core of what it is that we're doing, either as individual artists or as an organization of artists, that's really it. Yeah.
And so when you think about One Love DAO, so is it correct to say that you really exist to help underrepresented artists, to elevate underrepresented artists, or is the One Love Art DAO for all people, new artists, established artists, underrepresented, overrepresented, if that's such a thing?
Yeah. So I think because it is for everybody, you're going to have a larger quantity of emerging artists. And it's interesting that we're talking about this because at the beginning of creating One Love Art DAO, I actually had a conversation with one of the co-founders. And I made the mistake of using small and large artists in a conversation. And he was like, wait, no, that doesn't exist. You know, words really matter, and the energy behind words really matter. So what do you mean small? How is an artist small? Because they don't have a large audience, that doesn't mean anything. Some artists, you know, are established, but not in the Web3 space. You know, they could be people who've been painting for 20 plus years, have shown at many galleries, but then when they enter this space, they're not as known. Would you consider that a small artist? And then sort of by the flip, maybe there's somebody who doesn't have a lot of years in their practice, but comes into the NFT space and sells out, like crazy. And that is a large artist. So it really changed completely sort of like my perspective on using those adjectives. And then once I really got that, it was more of like, okay, so there's artists who sell quite a good amount in the space, and then there's artists who are getting to that place. And then across the board, there's just talent. And that talent can look like many things. It could be an artist who's an AI artist. It could be an artist who does 3D type art. It could be a poet like Ana Maria Caballero, who is the first poet to ever sell on Sotheby's, but happens to have a massive presence in the Web3 space. So I just broadened the net of like what my concept was of like what is established, not established, and realized that there's an immense value in having our community welcome anybody and offer those opportunities to anybody who's a member of the community. And sometimes we will curate an opportunity for an artist who is, a more established selling artist in the space. And then we will find literally a brand new person to the space. And that's incredibly exciting as well. And so that's the way that we have approached it. And I think that's the way that we're going to continue to approach it. And that inclusivity is why the name is the name. We believe in Bob Marley's mission of unity and one love for all. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was recently 2 Bob Marley movies that came out. One was a biopic that I personally thought was, very well done. Production, cinematography, acting, the sound. And then the other was a documentary. Have you seen both those? What do you think about your story being retold in 20 or 30 years? If someone was going to retell your story in the industry, your memoir of sorts, would you prefer it be a collection of conversations that are authentic like this, you and I talking, and it's a documentary, or some famous actress in 20 or 30 years playing you? I just thought maybe transitioning to how our stories are told and legacy, as part of Bob's legacy is you calling this One Love Art DAO.
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I've been so head down that I don't think I've actually sat down to enjoy too many movies in the last 2-3 years. I did see about them, but I had watched a documentary years ago on Bob and really appreciated that. It was more of like a biography type of a movie. To be honest, if somebody were to play me in some future, that would be cool. I'm not against that. That's pretty awesome. But I would prefer it to be remembered. I think that's the historian in me. I would prefer it to be remembered much more authentically through these types of conversations, reading, the posts I've made on X or the articles I've written on LinkedIn, the collections that I helped to launch or the exhibitions that I helped put together. I would much prefer it to be that from a very authentic point of view, because I think what happens sometimes is that once people become larger than who they are and they take on a public persona, they're remembered only for little things. I was talking to a friend of mine about Frida Kahlo or Pablo Picasso. Oftentimes we're just staring at the art and we're just staring at the public persona, but many people forget that Frida, is on their currency for a reason. She was part of the labor movement, and they're shocked, oh, she was a socialist. That's interesting. And I'm like, how do you not know this? It's a key part of her art and her artistic expression, or things about Picasso as well. So I would hope that the legacy of One Love is given to people sort of in a very humanistic, realistic way, and not sanitized in any way. We were just a bunch of regular people who got together and did some really cool stuff and helped someone. Yeah.
What do you think the role is with AI? So there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. It's large language models, it's machine learning, it's voice technology. It's basically the culmination of our generation and our ancestors, and everything that the 8 billion humans that have lived, that are alive today, and the billions that have come, everything we've ever created as humanity, all of our art, all of our writing, all of our sounds, all of our music, all of our photography, all of our stories, all of our history. That is reflected in ChatGPT Pro and Super Grok 3 and whatever your favorite tool is, whether it's a niche tool for creating art like a Midjourney or a Stable Diffusion or something different. So these things don't have souls. It's not unreasonable to say that they're collaborative tools. It's not unreasonable to give them credit where credit's due. Like my father was a carpenter. I grew up as a carpenter. I never looked at a house. In fact, I built this place on the beach with my dad. So I don't look at this and be like, I did this with my bare hands. It's like, no, I had nail guns and I had nails and wood. Like I had them paint. Like that's how I did it. I had tools to put it together. But I never would say, well, without me, the nail gun and the paint and the brush, it would have done it all without me. No, it's like it was a tool in my hands. So how do you think creatives should think through AI as a collaborative tool? Maybe give it credit where credit's due, and credit might be due toward the people that have come before that were part of the large language model data set. How should artists think through these tools, and why do you believe that to be the case?
So I guess I'll preface it with that artists are uniquely going to do whatever it is that they want to do, right? And I totally, I'm for whatever they choose to do. So if they don't want to use it in their process at all, I totally respect that. If they want to use it in their process and not provide the information that that's what that medium was. I remember having a conversation with a well-known artist in the space, Delta Sauce, about this, and he had his reasons for why he didn't specifically feel the need to mention it. He came into the space, him and Claire, around a time where it was actually really toxic to be a creative and say that. Like they would get even death threats and just all kinds of comments, right? So I totally respect that point of view. I can only say that for me personally, it's in my name. When I write poetry, I don't use Siren AI as the signature. I use La Sirena, the mermaid. That's my personal preference. I also like to put it in any sort of tags on platforms if it allows for a tag to be placed. I like to say it's AI, or just say it in the description even. But that's just me, because I feel like it's just coming out right with the situation. So if there is a collector who is completely not going to want to collect AI art, then that's not the collector for me. I want my art to connect and align with the right collector. So that's me personally. And then I agree. I think to call it artificial intelligence really is a misnomer, because there is no intelligence that is artificial. It has to be organic, if I'm being honest with you. So what it is it's an amalgamation of our history, of our words and stuff like that. And in that way, I think it's incredibly helpful. So I'll give you an example. I have friends who are painters who speak to AI or who play around with Midjourney first to conceptualize it. They use it more as a design sounding board. And then from that, they can then go and create the physical piece of art, right? Or there's people like me who are prompting poets who, really hone in on the words and create a visual with that. But I will say that the other thing that creatives can, or people in general can think about is my story is kind of interesting, because it was like my gateway drug into visual arts, because then all of a sudden I was like, well, why don't I put in a photo? Why don't I tell it that I don't understand why it keeps giving me art that skews towards Caucasians? That's not what I look like. Why does it keep rendering these things that I don't relate to, and training my model so that it was more fair or neutral when it comes to representation? But also then I found myself really curious, maybe I should start drawing. Let me start touching paint. And so that was my experience. So I think we have to have less of a strong polarized opinion on the matter, either or. I think that it's here, the genie's out of the bottle. So you might as well figure out how AI works for you in your creative process, or not at all, basically, is how I sort of see it.
Yes. Well, as we come toward a close in our conversation, I want to thank you for being with me. I also want to acknowledge our audience. We're live across 4 different social media sites. It looks like there's over 600 people watching our live stream. We got a fun comment on X a moment ago, so I want to acknowledge Jacko. Jacko said, "Let's go," like someone just scored a soccer goal, lots of O's. NFT and One Love DAO, One Love Art DAO. Super excited to be participating in everything you both bring to the world, and I'm ready for next month. So let me ask you, Jen, as you think about NFT.NYC happening, June 24th through 26th, we're renting all the billboards again on the 24th. We've moved out of the Javits Center back into a more intimate environment because even with 10,000 people at the Javits Center, it didn't feel very community oriented. People came in to speak, they came in to do an art thing, they came to hear a friend, and they bounced to a side event. So we're going back into an environment that we had in 2022 where we had 18,500 people at our event, and that Marriott Marquis was the place to be. It's like where everyone's at, you get access to everybody, and we're trying to create that again. So when you think about yourself as a leader, as a artist, as a collector, and as a member of a community, what are you looking forward to when you get to be with all of your peers and your friends and your collaborators when we're all together there in Times Square?
Oh, to be honest, I don't think there's anything comparable to being with each other in community IRL. So, I mean, all of those conversations that we have on Spaces, all of those moments that are shared on the X feed, etc., they just get to be experienced IRL. That's how I see it. And I think it strengthens those bonds. And it's always exciting because I feel like it's a tremendous opportunity for growth. It's a tremendous opportunity to cement those connections that we've been cultivating. And I think from that, a lot of us leave inspired and go on to either create great art or to create things with each other. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking to reconnecting and really being inspired and then just continuing to level up as an individual, but also collectively with everybody else. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to spending time with you. Is your husband going to join you?
Yeah, he's coming, and so are my two children. They've also been sort of a part of this whole thing coming up with me.
Cool. My wife and I, we're bringing our three sons. Our boys are 8, 12, and 16. All three of them have used AI tools to create NFT projects with my wife. How old are your kids?
13 and 11.
Oh, that's fun. Well, we should all hang out together.
We definitely. Perfect.
Good. Well, I look forward to seeing you. And for everyone that's watching this conversation, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at NFT.NYC in June. And until next time, peace, everybody.